Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's webinar on ransomware security and backup and how you can protect yourselves. My name is Barry Kemp. I'm the head of managed IT at Vox, and with me today is Jurgen Sorton, who's the senior product manager for security at Vox. Just a couple of housekeeping points. If you have any technical issues, just pop a message through on the chat. We've got somebody monitoring that can assist. And if you've got any questions, pop them into the chat window, and at the end we'll have a session where we'll go through all the questions. So today we're going to discuss ransomware and strategies to protect yourself from ransomware and what to do if you're affected with ransomware itself. So just to set the scene a little bit, one of the more interesting stats around is that South Africa has the third highest cybercrime in the world. We are a target, even though we're all the way down south here and everybody thinks we're in the middle of nowhere. We are quite a large cybersecurity target, and it means we have to be very careful about how we react to it. According to Kaspersky, ransomware attacks have increased 22% in the first quarter of 2019, which is quite a big jump. So just quickly, what is ransomware? So in a nutshell, it's a virus. Most people have heard of a virus. Maybe they've got one in the past, and what it does is, its unique feature is it allows a virus writer to actually make money out of their virus. So it encrypts the files on your machine, and then the ransomware writer asks you for a ransomware to decrypt those files. They get encrypted with a very high level of encryption, so you can't just go and decrypt it. And obviously you need to either pay the ransom or restore it for backup, which we'll get to in a second. 9 times out of 10, the way that the mechanism that the virus writers use to get the money out is using Bitcoin or blockchain. You may have heard either of those terms. And the reason they do that is because it's completely untraceable. You can't go and ask a bank where it came from, go and trace it that way. So it's for a virus writer, it's very handy to use. And the history of crypto viruses and ransomware, they started in roughly 2012. One of the bigger ones about 3 or 4 years ago was CryptoLocker. They made $3 million out of that one ransomware before the FBI shut them down. So it is quite a lucrative business, and it means that even the smallest business can be a target for ransomware writers. So what do you do to avoid ransomware?
Okay, so the solution is really a multi-pronged approach here. It's using the best of breed products, absolutely. But other two key components of here is the management of those best of breed products and consistent management of that, and also end user awareness. It's to change the culture within your organization to ensure that the end users are aware of the risks and are a little bit more aware before they click on a malicious link. And that is critical. And unfortunately, awareness is an ongoing exercise. There are solutions out there that will ensure that your end users are actually trained correctly on a monthly basis. And obviously, you can pull reports to see whether they've actually attended the awareness sessions. But it's extremely important to make sure that cybersecurity is front of mind. Vox have ensured that we've chosen the best of breed products for our customers. Best of breed products are the solutions and the products that we've chosen. One of the reasons we've chosen them as well is because they're extremely innovative. And they need to be. There's constant threats out there, and the threats are ever changing, and new threats are introduced on a daily basis. So they need to be innovative. And by being innovative, they're updating their products constantly. And if you're not on top of it from a management point of view, if you're not aware of the new solutions that are available to a product you've already procured, you're not necessarily going to be switching those features on. And some of those solutions, some of those new innovative solutions are not automatically turned on because there may be an impact to the end user. And that's where it's key to have a partner to assist you in terms of managing those solutions. Sit down with you and explain to you the new features that have come out, and also help implement those to have very little impact to your end users. I said it's multi-pronged approach. Obviously, endpoint security is absolutely critical. Having an endpoint security that is able to detect, obviously, known threats, and also have the ability to detect unusual behavior for any kind of zero-day attacks or ransomware that's just been launched is critical. Having the right perimeter security from a firewall point of view is absolutely key. Vox, we've partnered with Fortinet, world-leading firewall. They have actually a specific feature which is quite easy to configure. It's botnet protection, and it stops the ransomware from being able to communicate to its command and control server, which will actually start the whole ransomware attack process. And that's quite an easy feature to turn on, and obviously Fortinet would protect you from that. 90% of malware, including ransomware, typically comes through email. So your email security solution is also extremely critical. From that point of view, we obviously recommend Mimecast as world-leading email security solution provider, and they have solutions in place that will protect a user from clicking on a malicious link. Will obviously stop any known ransomware from coming in, and basically protecting you from that point of view. I've touched on awareness, and it's absolutely critical, and it's something that is possibly not done enough within organizations. And then obviously patching, which Barry can speak to. It's extremely important to patch. Yeah.
So patches are one of the most key components of your strategy against ransomware, and probably where you should actually start. Sorry. Most virus attacks actually originate in a vulnerability in an operating system. The most famous one that it was a couple of years ago was a WannaCry, there was a patch for WannaCry that was available at least a week before it actually affected the machines. So if you were a switched on company and you had the right management in place, you would have had that patch and you would have been safe. But a large part of the world didn't, and it hit very hard. I think it was 150 million computers that were infected with that particular virus, simply because they weren't patched correctly. And once again, this comes down to having the right provider managing the patching on your network, ensuring that you have weekly or constant checks of what patches are available. If there's a security patch, now just so that everybody's aware, the way Microsoft does their patching, they have something called Patch Tuesday, which is major patches. But they release security and critical patches on a sometimes hourly basis if necessary. And to have your patch solution configured correctly so that it'll automatically roll those patches out to your network on demand is very, very important. And like I said, it's one of the first steps in making sure that you have your environment secured.
Absolutely.
So that's the making sure you don't get infected components. But with the best will in the world, every now and again you will get a ransomware coming through. It could be that it's a brand new virus that nobody has a patch for. That there's no virus definitions for that particular virus yet, and it comes through your network and you get encrypted. Then having the right backups in place to be able to recover from it is also absolutely vital. Having a solution like Veeam, which is the solution that Vox has partnered with, which uses a cloud backup for back-end app servers and desktops, is also very important. And the reason for that is because you can't have the backup on site, because most of the time the whoever's written the virus will try and detect the backup location and encrypt the backup as well. So that is definitely a target for virus writers. So having it off-sited into another location, whether it's in the cloud or tape library or any of those sort of solutions, is also critical to making sure that you can recover from a ransomware attack. Some of the strategies, some of you have heard of the 3-2-1 rule. So it's actually quite simple. 3 copies of your data, two on site and 1 off site, and the off site one needs to be what we call air gapped. Now that's a cloud backup or a tape backup that's outsourced to a provider to collect. Those are the 2 major strategies to making sure your backups are secure. If you have Office 365, for example, there is also a level of antivirus ransomware protection built into 365 itself. Microsoft does provide some antivirus scanning in their solutions, so files going in and out of OneDrive do actually get scanned. But if your machine does get encrypted, when it tries to write those files back to your OneDrive folder, there's technologies in the background that go, this doesn't sound right, and stops it from being written back into the OneDrive folders. You can also then recover from those sort of things with the technologies in 365. They keep you 30 days of your data, so you can recover back. And if it's only a few files, you can actually do it yourself in your portal. Go ahead and right-click and say previous version, and you can go back to a clean version of those files. So those technologies are available in things like OneDrive and Office 365, and they are quite important to making sure that you get your viruses, your data secured. Jurgen, have you got anything else to add on the backup side?
I think it's absolutely critical. It's really at times if you are getting hit by ransomware, it's going to be your last way of recovering from a ransomware attack is to ensure that your backups are run on a daily basis and you're able to restore from your backups. Without that, you're really not going to have another option. And obviously, paying is really not an option. You probably will make yourself a target for another attack. So that's absolutely essential to ensure that your backups are running and are managed correctly.
There was a case in the news a few weeks ago with the city of Baltimore in the States that got crypto locked, and it's now, I think it's about 6 weeks later, and they're still trying to recover parts of their network because they didn't have reliable backups in place and they couldn't just revert back. We've actually had it with some customers where they got infected overnight, and by 10 o'clock the next morning they were running again because the backups we just restored back and life carried on. If you've got the correct backup in place, getting infected almost becomes a non-event. It's just a case of rolling back and off you go again. So yeah, it is incredibly important.
I think the speed of recovery as well is extremely important. That's where the cost comes in, is the amount of time it actually takes for you to recover from this. If it's days, nobody can afford for their business to be down for days. So the right solutions in place and the ability to recover from it very quickly.
Yeah. There's a stat that says a business that gets crypto locked and is down for more than I think it's 3 or 4 days has a 40% chance of going under. So it is vital to get in those backups restored as quickly as we can.
Yeah. And like I mentioned, perimeter, email, and endpoint security, at a minimum, you need to have these in place. But there are other things you can do within your own organizations to ensure that you're a little bit more protected from this. Ensuring that you have strong password policies, two-factor authentication wherever you can. Mimecast's personal portal and allows for two-factor authentication. So it's just an additional level of security as well.
Mm. And the same thing with Office 365. They also support two-factor authentication. And at the moment, one of the bigger targets for organizations is actually what they call whaling or phishing attacks, where somebody tries to get the details of a senior financial person and sends in a false message saying, please transfer X amount of money into this account, and makes it look like it comes from the CEO to the CFO, for example. And if you have two-factor authentication enabled on your 365 account, it's impossible for a user to then log in unless they're sitting with you. And just to touch, two-factor is something that a lot of people talk about. Not everybody knows what it is. What it basically means is that you have your username and password, as you do today, and then you have another, what they call factor. Now, that factor could be an SMS with a code. Most of you probably have that with your banking. You can have an app on your phone that creates a code that you put in, or it could be what they call a security key, which is a USB device that plugs into your laptop, and that basically says, I am who I say I am. And they reckon with some sort of multi-factor authentication in place, it drops the likelihood of getting hacked in that way, somebody logging into your account, by 99%. It's probably one of the most effective ways of protecting yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. There are other solutions you can apply as well. They get a little bit more technical. You can segment your network and protect your databases from your applications, from your end users. So in the event that you do get attacked by ransomware, at least your business applications are protected, and just as important, your database as well.
Yeah, 100%. And it also comes down to making sure that on your file servers, for example, that you don't just allow. In Windows, there's the concept of everyone with read full control access. Having that enabled is just a recipe for disaster if you get encrypted. Make sure that you've got the policy of least privilege on those servers. Only the people that need to get onto it have access, and just be very careful about who's got full admin rights on a network. That can also cause a lot of trouble.
No, absolutely. And those are easily overlooked too.
Yeah, 100%. Have we got any questions?
So we have one question here from Johan, just asking, how do you know if your firewall is actually adequate?
Okay, so Barry, I don't know if you want to handle this, but the one service we do offer, which is a free service, is our CTAP assessment. So we can actually come through there and actually do an assessment for a week and actually provide you a report to show you quite a few interesting stats in terms of what's happening and almost what your security posture is from that point of view. Barry, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, so it's like Jurgen said, it's a free service. We come in, we put a device in on your existing network. Doesn't interfere with the traffic or anything. It just logs the traffic going through, and then it provides a report that gives you insights into what your firewall is currently blocking, and most likely what it's not blocking. And that's obviously the most important part of it. You'll be surprised how many firewalls we've seen in the market or in the industry that aren't set up correctly. They don't have the right policies in place. They don't have the right filtering in place, and they are allowing everything in and out of the network. And it could be innocuous things like somebody, well, maybe it's not that innocuous, but torrenting movies on the corporate network, or it could be specific malicious websites that people inadvertently are going to on the network. They don't know that it's a malicious website, but it's been infected by some sort of virus. And that's also one of the threat vectors that allows a virus to get into the network. And the CTAP program can alert you to that, and then we can make recommendations based on that on how to improve the security posture in your organization.
Okay, it looks like we don't have any more questions.
I think, going back to that question as well, obviously we offer a firewall managed service, and it's key for constant management is key, but the visibility and the reports that we provide allows you to make better decisions. Gartner, there was a stat that was saying around 90% of the breaches that occurred through misconfigured security solutions, and it's absolutely critical to manage these solutions are almost on a constant basis. And very few customers out there have the time and or potentially the skills to be able to do that. Buying a best of breed solution, switching it on, configuring it one time, leaving it in the corner, and hope that you're going to be protected for the next few months or years, it's just not realistic. You need to be able to pull this report, understand what your end users are doing, understand what it is you're blocking, understand what policies you have, and what kind of how secure those are. Allowing RDP into your organization is obviously not a great idea. But if you have that policy in place, the firewall is going to do what a firewall does, and it allows it through. So to be able to interact with the level of expertise that we have at Vox, I think is absolutely critical, and will add a lot of value to the solution you have on site.
So we have got another question that's popped up here from Frank, asking how effective, in your opinion, are antivirus programs like Norton or Bitdefender? So for me, it's part of an overall solution. Just having antivirus isn't really going to help you because there are lots of threats that come in various different ways. For example, coming through email. So having good antivirus and Norton and Bitdefender are both well-known brands. It's one step in the process. It's part of a multi-level, multi-layer, multi-prong approach to making sure you're secure. There's probably there's the big five basically of antiviruses that will protect you from most things, but you need to be able to protect yourselves from things like Jurgen touched on it earlier. A company having remote desktop services open to the internet. It's probably one of the single most open ports, and it's one of the most vulnerable ports. We've seen it in the wild where instead of an email encrypting a network or a malicious piece of code, a hacker actually hacks into a remote desktop and then encrypts a server. It's almost child's play to do that in this day and age. So having the firewall in front to protect that part of the solution is vital. It's a complete multi-pronged approach. Jurgen, your thoughts on that?
No, I absolutely agree. It isn't one solution or another. It's a basket of solutions overlaid with management of those solutions that is going to keep you protected.
Yeah, and it's, like Jurgen touched on it earlier, it's a constant management role to make sure that you have everything in place and hasn't been disabled by mistake. Maybe somebody was troubleshooting an issue and they've disabled part of your antivirus or your firewall policy, making sure that that's constantly checked and corrected. And also part of the management is being proactive about what rules are in place. So are you wasting some of the firewall's performance by having rules that aren't necessary? Do you have too many rules? Do you have not enough rules? There's that fine line between too many restrictions and not enough restrictions. Have you ordered your firewall policies correctly? And that is a core management function. Having the firewall policies incorrectly ordered can make the firewall work a lot harder than it needs to.
Absolutely. Also, I mean, at a bare minimum, annual vulnerability checking on your firewall is also key. You might have the right policies in place. You might have a website where internally that you're publishing publicly on the internet. You're allowing port 443. You have an SSL certificate. Everything's great, but the website itself is compromised. There are known exploits out there, and we read a report just recently, Barry, where some of these things are not being patched. So you've done everything right in terms of having the right firewall in place, having the right policies in place, but ultimately the web server itself is compromised.
Yeah, that happens much more than people think. Versions of WordPress or Joomla that aren't up to date and patched. Having that is critical to making sure your overall structure is correct. Okay, I think that's bringing us to the end of our webinar. Unless there are any other questions that are in the chat room, I'll just give it a minute just to see if there's anything else that's popped up. But if you've got any other questions on what we've discussed today, reach out to us either through an account manager or our website, and we can assist in doing an assessment, the CTAP that Jurgen discussed earlier. It's very effective. It doesn't matter what firewall you currently have in place. We can put it in place and give you an overall picture. That's completely free. We also offer a IT assessment service where we'll come in and give you advice on or highlight areas in your business that we feel are at risk, with a solution to fix that particular issue. And sometimes it's nice just to get a sanity check of where your IT structure is and how you are compared to some of the other industries out there. Okay. So I don't see any more questions there, so I think that's it.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for your time.
Guys, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.